Going?
I think
All right. Okay. Well, let's check just to make sure.
Yeah.
Yep, it is. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'll let you take a minute to introduce yourselves, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Go ahead.
Mindy Mesma, 7th grade social studies at Westridge Middle.
Okay, thank you.
Brian Hayes, parent.
Lori Jankowitz, counselor.
Kim Woodford, 8th grade science teacher.
Ashlyn Para.
All right. Thank you for coming. I hope you're enjoying your summer vacations, getting back to school, new baby. I really appreciate you coming in. I know you're all busy working and having fun, and so I really do appreciate this. Thank you. Good morning. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Jeremy McDonald, the principal at Westridge Middle
right.
School.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem.
So I was presented with this grad school project, and one thing I noticed, I thought, what am I going to do this on? And I noticed that some of our students here are not always following the positive behaviors. And so when I would try to implement them in class, I'd go back and say, hey, let's talk about what you learned in Wildcat Hour. And some of the students would say, we didn't learn that in Wildcat Hour, or my teacher doesn't teach the lessons. So I started thinking, I thought, this is what I'm going to do this on. And our goal here today is just to kind of talk about, we obviously won't solve any problems today, but maybe get some ideas on how we can get all staff participation and buy-in on this. So today what we're going to do, we've all introduced ourselves. I'm going to tell you a little story. I'm going to talk about what PBIS is. We have a couple activities. We'll talk about our survey that everybody took, another activity, and then we'll try to talk about some ideas and some solutions. Some of you may have seen this story. I borrowed this from Shawnee Mission. So in a small town, moving upstream, a story of prevention and intervention. In a small town, a group of fishermen gathered down at the river. Not long after they got there, a child came floating down the rapids calling for help. One of the group on the shore quickly jumped in and pulled the child out. Minutes later, another child came, and then another, and then many more children were coming down the river. Soon everyone was diving in and dragging children to the shore, then jumping back in to save as many as they could. In the midst of all this frenzy, one of the group was seen walking away. Her colleagues were irate. How could she just leave when there were so many children to save? After long hours, to everyone's relief, the flow of children stopped, and the group could finally catch their breath. At that moment, their colleague came back. They turned to her and angrily shouted, "How could you just walk away when we needed everyone here to save our children?" She replied, "Well, it occurred to me that someone ought to go upstream and find out why so many kids were falling into the river. What I found is that the old wooden bridge had several planks missing, and when some of the children tried to jump over the gap, they couldn't make it and fell through into the river. So I got someone to fix the bridge." What does this mean, or what does it mean to move upstream? You guys can talk, share some ideas.
Probably problem solve. Don't just keep putting a Band-Aid on it. Try to actually fix it.
Go in and fix the problem.
Being proactive, thinking about things before they happen and taking care of them.
I think also too sometimes doing things that like not following what everybody else is doing and kind of thinking outside the box on your own.
Okay. Good. Anybody else? And how is this a preventative effort or prevention effort? Some of you kind of touched on that. I don't know if you said being proactive instead of reactive, thinking before.
Mhm.
Okay, very good. So at Westridge, we have a lot of goals. One of our goals that I was looking at is that all students and all teachers will participate in PBIS. And it says student social emotional development will increase as all teachers will teach PBIS philosophies. And it's obvious that that is not occurring. So that is our problem. Not all staff are teaching these skills, which does result in students missing positive supports. Would you agree with? Is this some of the things you've seen
Absolutely.
in your classrooms?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about what PBIS is. Brian, you want to take a guess? Mr. Hayes?
No.
Okay. The P stands for positive. B, behavior. Intervention supports. So we are trying to support our students in a positive manner. It creates safer and more effective schools. I hate reading to you guys, sorry. You want to just read them? Focuses on a school's ability to teach and support positive behavior for, again, all students. provides a system for schools to design and implement and evaluate. And we design our PBIS, we plan lessons to this, we look at our data. And that came up in the survey too, that, we are providing lessons, we're looking at what we need to do, and we're keeping records of our behaviors. And I thought this one was the most important. It's school-wide procedure and processes intended for, again, all students, all staff, in all settings. So that's in our hallways, in our classrooms, in our cafeteria, everywhere. Why are you not going? It is not a program or a curriculum. It is, however, a systemic process for problem solving, planning, and evaluation of implementation. Any questions? Any comments? Okay, we're going to do a little activity. So you'll have to move your muffins. Sorry. Move your muffins. And we're going to do a little 4-square activity. You each have a pen in front of you. And we're going to talk about what we think are some benefits of PBIS. And you can pass it around if you want to start. It does not matter to me. I'm going to tell you the rules of this. On your 4-square, I want you to think about your experiences and the knowledge that you have and what you think are some benefits of PBIS. And in each square, we have the benefits for students, staff, our community, and then other, if you have any ideas about that. The trick is you can't write until everybody else has gone. So if we have it in the middle, you can't jump in and share until everybody has had a chance to write something down. So we're going to start in the student box, and you can read it out loud, you can talk, share, you can race. It doesn't matter to me. You want to start or put it in the middle?
Is there one person recording, or we're gonna?
You're all going to write.
Okay.
So you can, you can stand up, eat chocolate. Jeremy, remind me, I need you to sign a paper for me.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay,
Like
We
the
have a time
benefit
limit.
of
you do
use?
not. We're going to start with the first one. What are some benefits of PBIS for students?
Yes. Expectations are the same.
I'm just saying they're like kind of consistent throughout the building. So like when they go to each room, there's not really surprises. Like they know what to expect in each room
And the same
and in
with the
different
language.
environment. Yeah. Teachers using a common language.
Could you add a 5th box for parents?
Community. That's be class under community.
Isn't that part of the problem most of the time?
That with
That
parent
parents don't get
support.
in?
Well, sometimes
like
you get
that.
that. So you don't get the support. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not very PC.
No, that's good. Like sport.
So it could be for the students, the benefits of it is we could be teaching the parents.
So they could take their skills that they're learning at school home and out into the.
Strategies and did I hear you say incentives,
Jeremy did.
Jeremy?
I think incentives, it's motivating. We're pointing out positives rather than always the negatives.
I think
Also
that's a
for
benefit.
students.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say they learn the behavior. I mean, for those that are lacking, they learn how to do the behaviors, what's appropriate. Some haven't learned that those behaviors are coming.
But I think that's a benefit too for parents is to see their kids get recognized in a positive way. Because I think
Yes.
sometimes schools only calling if like something's wrong or like for a negative thing. So like if they get recognized for something positive, it's important. I think.
And teachable moments.
I think this could probably go under staff and community, but data. We have a baseline now that we've logged everything in Skyward last year. We now have baseline data that we can compare and try to get better. So
I think staff also has that common language to use. It's something, and they have that consistency or should have that consistency across rooms, which is a positive.
And supports are in place.
Yeah.
I think there's incentives for staff too. We try to do drawings. If you put in, like we try to do if you're handing out tickets, they go into the jug.
Yeah.
You take over. You're good.
Go
Whoop
ahead.
whoop swords and sonic drinks and
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
1% pay raise. Oh no, that's not.
Also, the staff can learn from it. Activities, kind of self checks because we get burned out at times too. And this is like when to take a break, when to know when to not let them push your buttons.
I think it can also be a relationship building piece for staff. Like some of the lessons allow for them to build relationships with kids that are in their wild kid hour and stuff.
I feel like you've read this before.
I did.
I do. I was like, how do I send this to you?
It allows us to come up with some
I did do
initiatives.
PBIS. I'm sure.
So like if disrespect's a common behavior we're seeing, then we can maybe focus on that and try to define it and target it.
Yeah, so the
And
target
address it and
behaviors.
target, yeah.
And also, wasn't when we looked at that, not just the behaviors, but the times of day, the days of the week,
The location.
the
all of it.
locations, all of it.
Big five. And again, I think then community can also support those initiatives.
Because we have to inform them.
So site council, PTSA, our Caring for Kids team that meets.
MVP.
Like I can bring that information, the data to them, and then they might have ideas.
Would our MVPs be a part of that? If we,
Could be, yeah.
For depending on the student, we'll get them involved sometimes.
So excellent ideas, and you can see there are many benefits to that. So that kind of again leads to why are we not doing this more? I made a list up. I borrowed a list actually, and so let's look and see what you have that they don't. We have our academic skills. I'll let you just kind of skim over that. Bullying, drug use. I love the provide a free and appropriate education for all. I think when you get the one or two children in there that are running the classroom, it takes away from the other students, and so we're preparing them to be good citizens.
Could you bring back like capital punishment?
We cannot.
Rulers on the back of the hand.
No, is that something?
Oh, that's not positive.
Yeah, we're doing
This is
positive.
perfected. I'm sorry.
We'll give them a ticket. Yeah. Tickets.
Okay, so I had you participate in a survey last week, and I thought what was really interesting is all the things that we are doing here. We have so many great implementations and things already going. So it was really interesting for me to see some of our results. One of the questions was, expected student behaviors are taught directly. And this again goes into our all teaching and our all students getting this. So if you look, we have about 43% that said it's partially in place, about 57 that said it was in place. Anybody want to chime in on what this says to you?
To me, I think it's like you can't. Sometimes it's hard to ensure that all teachers are teaching the lessons. So I think they're like given the materials and stuff, but it's hard to make sure. You know, you touched on earlier, like some kids like I didn't get that lesson in well an hour. So it's like most of them are taught it directly, except for the kids that aren't getting those lessons.
Getting the lessons. So let's think about too. We'll go through a couple more, but how can we raise these numbers? What are some ideas so that we know that those behaviors are actually being taught directly? Another question I gave you that lessons were provided are meaningful and meet the needs and expectations of our climate. I thought these results were good, but then it made me wonder if they are meaningful, why are they not being taught, or can they be tweaked? So, Mindy, do you have any ideas on that for me?
Well, with the lessons being meaningful, I think as we move forward with it, now that we have a data baseline, we're going to be able to look at the more targeted behaviors and times and locations and be able to create lessons
That hit those.
right. And whereas before we didn't have the data, we just heard the gripes kind of thing, or just teachers saying, well, I wish this would happen, or why don't we do this? And now we're going to have the data to back it up.
And maybe you could even bring that in like at team meetings and stuff. Like with everyone being on teams, like that could help hold. Maybe we could come up with creative ways to help hold teams accountable. Like
So I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
no,
But so you go around, I'm trying to remember back to my school days, and sit with teachers when things are being taught. You kind of overlook them, right? As a principal?
Yeah.
Okay. You can't be in every classroom at every point in time.
Correct.
So if we've got 4 teachers in here, right? And you're not very good at this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you are.
no, I know.
An example.
Yeah.
And you're awesome. You're and you're okay. You're the wildcat. So, but you know, you take a survey and you say, well, yeah, I'm doing it, but you're really not. guess how can you guys sit there and try to create a true benchmark of you're a problem teacher, right? Or and you're outstanding and you guys need to pick it up. Right? How does that?
Well, I think it starts with beginning of the year, setting the expectation, making sure everybody's on the same page.
Right.
That it is a non-negotiable item that this is happening, and if I find out that it's not, then there's accountability piece to it.
Right.
I think that's one of the goals of our admin team this year is to try to be in more classrooms.
You can't be everywhere. All the time.
Right, and I think we have an idea of a few that we
Right.
probably need to get into more, just from word of mouth and
Right.
from things that we know, from what we hear. But then we are going to Wildcat Hour every day next year or this upcoming year.
What is it?
And so that's basically when these lessons are taught. It's
Kinda
like
like
a
a homeroom
homeroom,
class.
Oh, okay.
an advisory. So one day is dedicated to like a structured study hall, which we call seminar.
Okay.
We used to only have 2 days that we did that. One was dedicated to our PBIS lessons. And I would say the majority of our staff does do the lessons.
Yes.
I would say you're talking 5% of our staff, maybe unless I'm off on that, 5-10%
If you think
that
5%,
don't. But if you think 5%, that's
20 kids.
20 kids, and so 20, 40,
Yeah,
60, you're talking 100 kids out of 900 that won't get. We need everybody to have that. So
That's where I think the teams could kind of like, because you said, there's out of like that team of 4 teachers, there's probably one that is rock star at teaching that lesson, or maybe a teacher doesn't feel comfortable with what the topic is that's being taught, so they can kind of work together to be like, maybe we pull our Wildcats together one day, or maybe we rotate.
And hold each other accountable.
But
Yeah.
these lessons are hand delivered. All they have to do is follow the plan, get their materials out of their mailbox. So
I say yes and no to that. I mean, they are yes. I mean, everything's there. However, to create it your own and for your kids, there's
You
stuff
still-
you put into it.
you want
know?
to look it over.
So if we
You
had
hope,
those,
you hope that
well,
people put-
yes, I do.
Yes,
yes. You
But,
personalize
You're
it.
the
yeah.
rock star.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if
Oh,
we
gosh,
had
I love
those
that.
ahead of time, like a week or 2 weeks or what, anew, then we'd be able to sit with our team and say, hey, how are you going to, do this week? What are you doing? And share ideas. And even though it's there, to kind of bring other things on board. Maybe.
Right.
When you guys get in your teams, did somebody raise their hand and say, you know what, I'm actually struggling with this. I'm having issues with X, Y, and Z.
You hope so.
well,
Last year was our first
A
year.
lot of
for
people don't like to
teaming.
say, well,
Right, that's
you
my
know,
weakness.
I'm bad.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think as we continue the teams and the teams stay the same and there's that cohesiveness and you build that trust and the teachers are building relationships with each other. A lot of us say, you know what, you're better at that than me. That's your strength, whether it's in your team or
I
your
think so.
department. I think we're pretty good about that. What I think we have a harder time with is saying when you know somebody's not doing something, calling them out because it's like, well, I'm not their boss. I'm not this. That's the hard part. So I think with the accountability piece and doing more PD, things like that, I think also with, like you're saying, not everybody's getting it and students not getting it because some of our high flyers, our top tier kids that take a lot of our attention with these negative behaviors and we're trying to make them positive. They're gone a lot.
Bad.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they're gone a lot. So they miss these lessons.
Yes.
So I think what you were saying in our meeting last week is we're going to have, for sure we're having this homeroom Wildcat Hour every day. I think that's going to be better for consistency. But also if a child has ISS, they don't go until after Wildcat Hour. So they're getting the information. So they don't keep missing this information to better their skills and coping mechanisms.
So
I think that's going to be big.
this is
Yeah, I think
6th,
that's
7th, and 8th?
So,
Right?
yeah.
Just 7 and 8.
Just 7th and 8th?
Yeah.
So the peer group is pretty tight, right? So just an idea. The top tier,
Yes.
the bad kids. If they're little cancers, right? They can be in a classroom, right? It can spread pretty quick, I'm guessing. So if they're that bad and they're in Wildcat Hour, I'm trying to use you guys' lingo. I'm struggling. They can essentially be a problem then as well, correct? So if it's an ongoing scenario, could you just have kind of the bad kids all in one group, or is that
You don't want to alienate them.
Right.
And that's where it comes back to, I think, the teachers to build those relationships.
Gotcha.
And that's why you have the Wildcat Hour, because it's not an academic place for them, and hopefully it's just a place where they can open up,
Gotcha.
have that deal. So, because a lot of times when they misbehave, it's because they're frustrated and they don't know the skills. And so, in different academics, like I teach social studies, I may not get as much of that because of my content, my subject area. Whereas math, they might be like, I hate math, I'm not good at math, I've always been told, so they get frustrated, and that's when they start to act out.
Gotcha.
So this homeroom hopefully builds those, but they're in these homerooms with their team teachers.
Mhm.
So again, maybe if they struggle with math, their Wildcat Hour is their math teacher, so they can build that relationship with that individual.
And I think also being surrounded by
Hopefully.
kids that are displaying those positive behaviors is kind of essential for
Yes.
PBIS, for them to see like,
They
oh,
also-
they're doing that and the incentives and all of that.
They also need a lot of these high flyers need peer models, and
Mhm.
so they need to see their peers doing the right things.
Right.
So if we isolate them all, I think that would be quite the room.
Well, you'd probably need
yeah.
lots involved.
Mhm.
But
So
yeah.
we've talked about, we would love, and it's just, it all comes down to kind of funding, but having, it'd be a school within a school, so you have those kids that just don't have those skills to behave in a classroom, that they would be in kind of a homeroom all day, getting math, reading, until they can show that they can. So we've presented stuff like that to the district, but it all comes down to money, and so we kind of call it like a life coach. That would be certified in multiple contents.
Gotcha.
I used to do that.
That could
I did too.
that could teach those kids not only math, reading, social studies, science, whatever's, but how to behave, how to get along with others, how to respect your teachers and peers. So we're waiting.
Bless you.
That'd be a dream, a vision of ours
No,
down the road, hopefully.
Well, thank you all for educating me very quickly.
Thanks
Because
for
I was,
asking.
It's
Yeah,
nice-
because you're-
it's also
it's-
nice to have an outside perspective
Yeah.
come in. 'Cause
It's a big struggle because
Yeah.
because they don't have those skills, and they're getting close to having to make big boy and big girl decisions pretty quickly.
Right.
So it's kind of our last kind of chance to catch them.
I got you.
Well, and I think if we could have some curriculum for it, like when they're on ISS, maybe reviewing some of those. There's a PBIS lesson that or in recovery, because that should be the time where they're learning it. I mean, not just doing assignments, which they should be doing too, but working on the behaviors that have got them there.
Mhm.
Right. That would be nice to.
That's a good idea. Another question I asked you is what hinders your active support of PBIS? I'm going to go through these, kind of get you out of here. But the majority, like Lori had stated, not to call you out on
No,
your,
you're
your
totally fine.
spot, but that would have been obvious that was you, that she's not in the classroom. But she can see those students in her office, so she doesn't have very many things that do hinder her. Some people address not knowing positive techniques to stop the negative behaviors. I think that'll go into more BIST later on, different things like that. Frustrating when teachers do not do the activities. And you can see here, this is why are you not switching? Pardon me. Hold on. How do you get it to? There we go. Same thing, not having buy-in. Celebrations are too far apart. I appreciated this comment because we do that for PBIS, our quarter celebrations, but I think this is something that could really be brought into our teams, is recognizing those kids quickly, immediately. And so I really, not to call that person out
Not
either,
that
but I really
I-
appreciated.
I'd like to kind of go back to that too. I would love to put like little 3-week kind of competitions where each team's going against each other, and maybe I thought about having like a team scoreboard somehow in the halls or somewhere that we could track tardies for these 3 weeks, and winning team with less tardies would get some sort of incentive, ice cream sandwich, I don't know, whatever we
Love
want
it.
to come up with. Maybe we generated a list of things that students wanted, and then they could pull from that list, and once that's gone, then they have to pull some, I don't know. But
We could
just
do
like
team
survey at the
competitions,
beginning of
8th grade
Wildcat of
versus
some
each other,
incentives they would
7th
like
grade
to
versus each other. We target,
Mhm.
referrals on disrespect, since that seems to be a high flyer for middle school
Mhm.
kids, and then
I love that
I love
idea.
that.
and then that kind of
Okay.
breaks them down
Yeah.
into, we could do,
It gives them
there's
something
9
to look
weeks in a quarter,
Yes.
do 3-week
I like that.
competitions.
I love that.
Plus, it's then team building for
Mhm.
Yeah.
each team.
Again, teachers not participating. So you can see that the biggest hindrance was some of us are working on this while others are not. And like you said, Mr. McDonald, it is a small amount, but that is a large amount of students. And so, again, our goal is how can we do this? You don't like this thing. You talk to my person who put these in here, Emily Brown. Okay, so I want to go back to a little positive. Here's what we are doing. We do have our celebrations. Could be more frequent. We are teaching our lessons. We have our data. I mean, this is amazing. We are using our Skyward, our discipline. We remind them in the moment. We have signage. These are all things that you all came up with on your survey, the things that we are doing. We're monitoring, modifying. That's what we can do as PBIS team. We're out in the halls. We do have our incentives. And I think, too, add more. We've got our teacher incentives, our tickets, store, lots of different things. I think the one thing to do just to catch that 5% and to fix that is that we do need to establish team and faculty buy-in. And one thing that really made me start noticing that this works and this is a process and it can be is I've had struggling classes, but one in the past, we had no buy-in from students on anything. We're not participating, not working. It was very difficult and no respect for me and for ourselves or each other. And so I started once a week just circling up. And we'd check in, how are you doing today? I'm a 3, rough weekend. And then they would answer a question. And at first they thought it was kind of hokey until they started listening to everyone. And they started realizing that everybody's got something going on. And they started respecting each other's opinions and ideas. And it totally changed the climate of my classroom. And so I think if teachers can see that and see that PBIS and building those relationships, we hold them accountable, then they'll be more likely to come in. I'm going to do one really quick activity for you. You can all just write as fast as you want, or Mindy can write and you can yell. And I want you to, these are things, that's why I said, we read this. We know that PBIS, we get stronger classroom management. It builds your teacher-student relationships, student-student. We do have higher achievement. And that's because they're in the classroom and they take pride in what they're doing. We feel safe. This is a huge thing right now, students feeling safe. We're developing positive and respectful young adults, ideally. So we're going to use our minds. We're not going to lose them. But if you could just think and brainstorm and throw down some ideas of what do you think we can do in order to have all teachers positively teach behavioral skills. And those, we might have covered a lot of those already. So if there's repeats or if you don't think you have anything else to add, that's fine. But what are some ideas that what we can do?
I think from an administrative standpoint, one of the things on my back to school professional learning that I'm talking to staff about is the why behind this and the importance of and the expectation of doing these. And so that's what I'm going to start with, and then the follow-up with that will be to be in classrooms during these lessons, and then there's an accountability piece, probably a conversation with myself if they're not doing it, and then obviously move through that continuum, but we're going to address it if it's not. So
I would think you would want to see a positive
in there,
yeah,
and an accountability if it's not.
I think meeting with teams is kind of, we've mentioned of how can we do a lesson and then what was the take back from that lesson. I know sometimes we would talk on our team about how certain people reacted or, based on behaviors and stuff. And if that was something that was tough for them. Or
like team reflection.
Exactly.
That's a great idea.
So reflection, and also how are you going to teach those ideas and stuff.
And I think too, once you teach it, then you model it and you keep using it. It's not a, hey, we did this on a Thursday and we'll catch you next week. And so it is. It's taking those lessons and using them. They're beneficial. There's a purpose. It's a continuum.
I think for the teachers who aren't on our team, like that hallway conversation of how'd that lesson go for you? And if they're like, oh, we had a lesson, I didn't know it. Kind of just know that you're kind of holding them accountable if they're in the hallway not doing what they're supposed to, that you're going to be asking them, hey, what'd you do? So.
Sorry.
Yeah, I would say, call them out who's not doing it. I mean, it's no different than being on, and I know that's tough. It is, but it's no different than being on, a baseball team and you're slacking. Hey, you gotta pick that. You gotta get in the cage and hit. Or, at our office, I'm a financial professional, so when somebody's gone for 2 weeks and if it's a family get vacation or whatever, and they don't come in 3 days a week, I'm like, dude, what have you been doing? Well, I was getting drunk at the golf course or so on and so forth. That doesn't really happen at this office, but at my previous. It's like, come on, dude, you're making this all look bad. So that kind of thing, because it is a reflection throughout the community.
Mhm.
So of everyone, no matter how awesome 90% of you are. So.
That is
I
a
think
good
with
point, yeah.
new teachers, and I'm talking 1 to 3 years, because the first year they're just kind of treading water.
You
just
just
gotta
have to
survive,
survive.
Right. So have a mentor for them 1 to 3 years to talk to them and different things within the building, And so these new teachers, and it's also anytime I've had student teachers or being a curriculum coach or the building mentor, it helps me
Mhm.
stay on track. It helps me remind me of what I need to be doing.
Well, and
things
maybe
like that.
those new teachers, like for the first couple lessons at the start of the year, want somebody to come in and help them.
Or they
So
merge.
there'd be
Well,
somebody
that's
from the
something that
team
we
or
could
one
do
of us
is
counselor.
model-
I could go
yeah,
in and help
model
them
lessons.
do
Mhm.
one of the lessons,
Yeah.
like so if they are lacking the confidence in that area, to do that.
Mhm.
And that's what we talked about on the days,
And they're subs.
subs going in and doing that, and then going in modeling lessons too.
That's another problem with
Yeah.
subs, then the
Yes.
lesson
Yeah.
doesn't get done.
Uh-huh.
So
So do you pick up and merge at that point in time? If it's a sub, it's like
Depends
automatic.
on who the
Depends on the
sub is.
lesson.
And who the sub is, because some subs would do like.
And they're
do it.
really good.
Mhm.
They're here a lot, for different ones of us. They know our kids. But other ones that we might split up the kids, and with amongst the
we'll
people,
go in
whatever.
and
Or one of us goes and covers it.
Yeah, or reach out to like me or like
Mhm.
if I'm available, I'm always happy to go in and teach it.
all right, great ideas. Thank you. Come on, button. Okay, so we've shared, we've talked out loud. That was a little bit better. So, like I said, we have some great ideas, and here's what's next. I think as a PBIS team and a school team, we can look at providing more lessons. And Mindy, you said that too, that develop those relationships so that they can see those incentives that we talked about, building those relationships, and then hopefully that'll bring them in and lure them in a little bit more. Like, hey, this actually does work. And like Mr. McDonald said, hold our teachers accountable. And the last thing I want to say to you is very, very much. I didn't know I was going to get emotional. Sorry. I do appreciate you all coming in here. And it's been a fun 2 years. This is my final project. And I know that we've taken this information here. And so just kind of an idea. I think we have some ideas that we can take back to PBIS and really look at. And so I appreciate all of you. Please take some of this food. That cantaloupe is really good. You can hit stop, Miss Ashlyn. Thank you. And make sure you hit stop.
I'm trying.